Hi, everyone, and welcome to Author Talks, where writers are an open book. Thank you so much for your patience today and for your hanging in there with us. Thank you so much. Wanted to share a 2021 recap with you, and nothing like some good old-fashioned technical difficulties to get the blood pumping. I think I have like 7 scheduled interviews now because it kept pushing us back and pushing us back. So I apologize there for the technical difficulty. I am writer and editor Jane VanVooren Rogers, host of the show, and I am so excited to be here today with author Barbara Newman to discuss her book, The Dreamcatcher Codes. So Barbara, thank you so much for being with us. So glad to have you here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. And it was great to see that lineup of other books and writers that you've interviewed. Some of them I know, and it's a great group to be with. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Looking at that too, it's like I'm sort of surprised, like, oh my gosh, fit in quite a few people there, even though this show started in June of 2021. So I'm really happy to do that. My mission here really is to help support authors and their books and promote them and their messages, because it is just so hard as an author to get your book and your message out there in sort of a sea of other books. And so anyway, and obviously too, just to go in depth with writers about their process and their books and all of the things, the marketing and the promotion and things that go into that. So anyway, so let's get started today with the Dreamcatcher Codes. So Barbara, what would you say that this book is about?
Oh, let's see. It's the story of 4 girls coming together from the 4 directions, very diverse girls from different cultures, and they come together on a quest to find the missing piece of a crystal horseshoe that holds the codes of nature. And those codes are the key to its survival. It's a book about the environment and climate change. It's got themes of diversity, girl power, sisterhood, and of course, the natural world. And we're in trouble. We need to, inspire young people. Well, a lot of young people are doing lots of things, and the voices are louder, and they are being heard. But this is sort of a hopeful book that's not dystopian, which is unusual for the genre of climate change.
And I love the description that I've read for the book, which is that it's a love letter to Mother Earth and her many daughters.
Yes.
What a beautiful
Thank you.
that is.
Thank you. I mean, it really does feel like my love letter to Mother Earth and to all of her daughters and her sons too, and to all of the things that inhabit the earth, the animals, but really to the daughters, because this is a book about girls finding their voices and their vital place in the world and in the universe, and how they emerge as from girl to woman. So it's really important. And I have a daughter, so this was written for her as well. And it is my love letter. It is like a love letter. I mean, I sobbed at many points along the way, including my getting to know the earth along this journey. I did a lot of traveling. So, and sort of communing with her and being with her, I call the earth a she. And it truly was like an offering.
That is lovely. And I think that you really capture a beautiful and lyrical quality with your writing that definitely comes through.
Thank you. Sometimes, there are places, you go back and you read your book, right, that's out there in the world, and you've read it a million times, and you've edited it and gone back for I don't know how many years, and you say, oh, is that too lyrical? Is it a little bit too flowery? Will that was a concern of mine, that a lot of it is poetic, but that's how I see nature. So when I'm describing nature, I can't be anything but poetic, you know.
Absolutely. Well, let's back up a little bit. So how did the idea for this book come to you?
It's an interesting story. I started, there's a cool kind of backstory to this. I started my career in the advertising world in New York City, and I was a creative director, writer, working on, mega global brands and traveling the world. And it was a great career, and I worked really, really hard. And I was in it for about 25 years, a long time. And something after a while was just missing. And I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew that I had to find something to do. And I'm a writer and a storyteller. And, in advertising, you're telling a 30-second story, or maybe a 60-second story, or maybe you'll expand that, as you know, from your work, into, a corporate piece that might be 2 or 3 minutes long. And, on all different, there's so many platforms right now that you can, brands can show their work. And so I did that for a very long time. And then I was driving to New York. I live in the Berkshires in Western Mass. And I was driving to New York, and I heard this interview on NPR with the executive director of the National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's a museum about cowgirls?
Yeah, no kidding.
Right? That's the coolest thing. How come I don't know about that? How come I don't know? I'm an educated American woman, and these women really helped shape the history of our country, in everything from the arts, fashion, conservation, politics, ranching, rodeo, all of those things. And I said, I don't know about them. And they inspired me. They were bold and courageous. They were independent. They were all the things that I wanted my daughter to be. And there was a soundbite of this cowgirl that came on, and she said, you really have to saddle your own horse. And she had taught 36,000 women and girls how to ride. And that expression, saddle your own horse, really hit me, to the point where I pulled over and I wrote it down. And I made sure that the National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame, and I said, this is too good. There's something, how you get like these goosebumps sometimes, right? They were like love bumps, right? And I said, there was a feeling inside of me, and I knew that this was something I needed to explore. And I did. A week later, I was at the museum. And what I loved about that expression, though, let me just go back a sec, is that, you saddle your own horse, whether you ride one or not. What does it mean to saddle your own horse? It means to be independent, resourceful, persevering, get the job done. Those were all the things that I wanted for my daughter and her friends and my friends and me, whether we rode a horse or not. So I'm all about girls' leadership. I've been an advocate for girls pretty much for 30 years. When I had to sort of grow into a female position, I was a female in a man's world, in the advertising world. So I knew how important it was to find your strength and to find your voice and be able to really express it well and to take your place at the table.
Yeah.
Right? We need to take our place at the table. So that was really important to me. So a week later, I called my sister-in-law, who's an Emmy award-winning film editor, and I said, Nance, what do you think of I've done some research, and there isn't a film about the American cowgirl. I mean, there are short stories here and there. There are lots of books, but what do you think about, let's go make a movie. Let's go make a doc film. And 3 months after that, I was in Montana. And then 2 months after that, I was in Wyoming, and then I was in Texas and California, and I was driving cattle, and I was filming the most interesting, fascinating women, really, really strong role models, like Temple Grandin and Sandra Day O'Connor, and the youngest cowgirl that we interviewed was 12 years old, and she was a musician, and she was writing the most extraordinary lyrics at 12, living in Montana, and part of the whole cowboy poetry culture, which is, it was wonderful and interesting, and I met all kinds of fantastic people. And then I would have continued on with this, but we lost a part of our funding. It was put on hold. Okay, so how do you turn that around? Okay, stuff happens all the time. What do you do? And I didn't really know what to do. I really didn't. I knew how that fed me. I knew that I wanted to, part of what we were doing and what we did, I created a Saddle Your Own Horse girls leadership program, and I was doing it for Girl Scouts and all kinds of young female groups. And I didn't want to stop doing that, but something else was calling. And I didn't know what it was until I literally had a dream. I literally had a dream that I was standing on the desert with an animal skin on my back, looking out at the mountains in the distance. It basically was, the cover of my book, right? And it was extraordinary. And I was standing inside the mandala. My feet were, planted into the earth, planted on the ground, in the desert, in the sand. And there was a beautiful mandala. My feet were in them. And it was the logo of the Cowgirls Forever Film Project. It was like a stamp. It was like a brand. And the wind came, literally the wind came, this crazy, crazy wild wind came, and it went around and it literally swept the mandala up, which is, in Buddhism, it's all about letting go. They take months or maybe years to even draw this beautiful sand painting, and then they blow it away. Detachment. And so I said, okay, that's something. But when it came down in another form, in the form of a book, I'm like, okay, I need to listen to this message. And the message was, well, I don't really want to write a book about cowgirls, right? And then I had another dream. And the dream, there were, girls on flying horses coming together. And there was the environment, and there was the earth, and there were plants. And I mean, it just like images just came to me. It was almost like a graphic novel. And I said, well, I don't really want to write a book about cowgirl superheroes. I mean, that's what it felt like to me. I want them to be real. But there is something heroic, and maybe they go on this hero's journey, right? Which was the structure for the book, like many books are. So that's really how it happened. And I started writing, but before I could really write, I started getting these ideas. And so I put together a vision board, all over my office. I had, I pulled, like, for example, I had it in, like, this was how I imagined Sophia to be. She's the mentor, right?
That's such a beautiful image.
Isn't it beautiful? I mean, I love her.
Did you create that, Barbara?
I didn't. I found it. So I had things like this plastered all over my walls. I had horses and feathers, and I knew that there was going to be a lot of Native American in this. I was kind of afraid to write a Native American character because of so much appropriation issues going on, and like American Dirt, really got kicked back and all of that. So I had to be very careful, but I knew that, no, I'm going to do this because I want diversity. And there's a story about how I got there. But I kept on imagining and seeing, dream catchers and feathers and wild horses and the earth. So I had to go to these places to write the story.
I
So
I love that there's such a mythology even around the creation of the book and your process, and having all of these objects and pictures and everything to inspire you, and then that you were inspired by these prophetic dreams. Like, has that happened to you at other times in your life, or just with this book?
no, just with this book.
How interesting.
Just with this book. I don't really remember, and here's the other thing, I mean, this might be a little woo for some people, but my mom had passed, after the funding was put on hold. My mom shortly passed after that, and that's when I started getting these vivid dreams, and I really think she was, like, knocking on me, said, "This is what you're gonna do, honey. This
Yeah.
is what you're gonna do." So, yeah, I mean, it was as much a spiritual journey for me, as a period of growth in that way, as a woman and as a spiritual seeker, as I think this book is for a young girl who's gonna read it. You know, they're not gonna get it in that way, it's not a preachy book at all, but when you talk about, like, the sacred geometry of a zinnia, and you talk about these codes that, are ancient, and that those are the things that are gonna keep the earth alive. It's really universe, and it's the cosmos, and it's spirit, and it's, so it all kind of comes together that way.
That
So
is beautiful. Love that. And that you followed, your calling too, to the, American West, from being in advertising as a, creative director. That in itself is, just quite a story, and that speaks to the power of, listening to spirit.
that's true, I mean, like, I think that opportunities come along, and we don't really hear them, we don't listen for them. And, but when it takes over the way that it did, I mean, it really took over. I was so passionate about it. And here's what's interesting too, the fact that, um, the logo was taken away by the wind.
Mm.
Um, I needed to detach from that project. I was so, committed is good. It's good to be committed, but I was so, identifying with that project and that cowgirl, that people would call me cowgirl. Every birthday, they would send me cowgirl cards. They would buy me cowgirl hats. They would buy me cowgirl, and the truth is, I fell in love with cowgirl spirit, the bold spirit of the cowgirl, which you have. Your daughters probably have it. I know my daughter has it.
My daughter definitely
Yeah,
has it for
it's like,
sure.
persevering. It's
I
like,
need more of it, I think.
yeah, it's like be a trailblazer, buck the rules, be a trailblazer, it's stay with the course, all of those lessons. So I really had to embody that, even writing this book, because this is my first novel. I mean, I've written my whole life, and, I've been a storyteller my whole life, making documentaries as a storyteller. Being an interviewer pulls the stories out, as you know. So, yeah, it was, really quite a journey, and, I had to face a lot of fears, like, I actually slept in the high desert without a tent,
Oh my goodness.
because I needed to know what it was really like to be in nature and not have that protection of a tent. I could really hear the night sounds, which are written about in the book. I am terrified of scorpions. I had to face that. I saw rattlesnakes, hyena, all kinds of things, so the sounds of the night, were really critical to feel, and also to feel that I'm really part of the earth. right? I'm really part. Like I had no, if I'm going to write about red rocks, I need to like go to red rock country, right? And
Yeah.
stand on those rocks and feel their power, so much power. So, so I went to all the places. There are compass points in the book, and the girls finally come together, and they're headquartered in a cave, in a big red rock cave. On top of the cave, it's sort of like Lord of the Ringsy a little bit,
Yeah.
But they, I had to know what that felt like. And then they have a compass on the floor, and they do all kinds of magic. These girls have these, they're powered by the elements: earth, air, fire, water, and those are the things that give them their qualities. They come together in sisterhood and use those powers, right? But they're ordinary girls. I mean, the girl from the East is from New York City, and she goes to farm camp, and she goes to a private school that she's, dad, there's only, 6 black girls in the whole school. Like, what's going on? So she's very, she walks in Climate March, and she's just a really woke kid, and loves nature, and really and worries about the homeless, and worries about food, and how are people going to eat. So and then my girl from the West, Yue, I love Yue. She's adopted. She's Chinese. She lives on a ranch with her dad. Her mom passed away. Her mom was a marine biologist. And, when she saw a whale killed by plastic, washed up on the shore, killed with plastic, she said, what's going to happen to my corals? What's going to happen to my dolphin? She loves the ocean, so each girl has their own passion. So, and she was president of her environmental club. So while there's a lot of magic and mysticism and myth in here, these girls are really rooted in the everyday. They're real girls. Like, at the end of the book, one of them has a cheeseburger. It's funny. A reviewer said, "Oh God, this is a great environmental story. I love it. Great glowing." And at the end it goes, "Boom, why is she eating a cheeseburger?" Because she's human. She's human. She's real.
So absolutely. So I just wanted to ask, so how did I know that this came to you in a dream and with the girls. So did you know from the very beginning that this was going to be a YA novel, that
Yes.
girls were really your target for this?
Yeah.
And
But
your primary
yes.
characters?
Yes. Well, my girls they're all 14, so they're just coming in, Maya from the North, who's really the main character. She has gathered these other girls. She's Lakota. I have a number of Lakota friends who guided me along the way, and I've had sensitivity readers who said yes, so all of that was good. And I love her. I love her, but she's real too, and she eats chocolate Twizzlers, but she won't have a cell phone because she thinks technology is screwing everything up. We go watch that movie the other day, Don't Look Up, and it kind of is.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought, but no, I knew YA. But what's interesting is a lot of moms are liking this book. A lot of people are liking this book. So, but I'm trying to market it to YA. I think it would be a fantastic film. A lot of people have said, "Oh my gosh, it's so visual. It'll be a great movie, and it checks all the things: environment, diversity, girl power."
Yes.
But I just want it to find its way into the right hands, and my hope, Jane, is that, my reader will maybe look at the natural world through new eyes, through wondrous eyes, and learn a little bit about plant medicine. Not a lot, but maybe just enough to pique their interest. They may learn about, astronomy enough to say, oh, I want to know. They may learn about the plastics in the oceans and the coral reefs bleaching and the glaciers calving and all of that. If they can fall in love with Mother Earth, right, they'll want to protect her. You're not going to protect something that you don't love, right? You have to love it. So that's what I'm hoping.
Well, and it's interesting because I've talked with other guests on the show before too about how art and entertainment can have, such an impact on our lives and on our inspirations. And it's coming to mind like the Scully effect as an example from the X-Files, that was a documented thing, that women went into STEM careers more after seeing the example of Dana Scully on the X-Files. So
there you go.
I think all the things that you're listing are definitely, realistic goals that, that could result from having, such an inspirational book.
Thank you.
With different characters and so much rich material to draw from, that it helps give people that inroad to exploring more about the environment and nature and plant medicine and all of those things.
And true. I mean, I think there are a lot of conversations to be had from this book. I mean, I think it would be I haven't done it yet, but I think I've been told that it would be a great, I should make a teacher's guide, because there is a lot of science in it, but it doesn't read like science. It reads like adventure. They don't want another science book. They want to read like adventure, right? So maybe, somebody will want to become a marine biologist or a climate activist or optimist. I like to say climate optimist. I mean, one of the things I have at the back of the book is I have a page of resources of organizations that kids can join, like Jane Goodall's Roots and Shoots, and Jamie Margolin, This 0 Hour. And, so I'm hoping that it sparks some kind of action, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing is, we had been talking earlier about building cultural bridges. So, one of the reasons I wanted diversity is because we have a lot of healing to do, and as a human race, and we need to accept one another and see each other in ourselves, that we are all one, and that is a very big value for the Native American community, all of them. I mean, every tribe really is all about being connected to the earth and we are all related, right? So there's a lot of diversity in this book with the plant and animal kingdoms, right? And Mother Earth, we are not separate from her. But I wanted these girls to see themselves in each other. And I wanted my reader to see themselves in these girls, right? So my girl from the East, and this was not conscious. I didn't plan this on purpose. I knew I was going to have a Native American, and I knew I wanted a girl who was adopted because my daughter-in-law is adopted. My daughter-in-law is also from Colombia. And my daughter, she's my daughter's wife. So my grandchildren are going to be biracial. So I felt good, okay, writing about the girl from New York who was raised Jewish and who's biracial, because it's in my life, right? So I wrote her character after having an experience in Arizona. And I went to Arizona to visit a friend, and we walked into her parents' home, and they are antique collectors, and there was a Navajo rug on the floor, and in the middle of the rug was a swastika symbol.
Mm.
And I kind of, I lost my breath. My breath was taken away. And, I was just washed over with such sadness. And I said, how can you have this? And she said, Barbara, that's the whirling log. I'm like, what's the whirling log? She said, it's the Navajo's symbol for their creation story.
Mm.
It's a beautiful story. And of course, I read the story. And, we give so much credence to symbols, and this book has a lot of symbols in it and a lot of symbolism. But when I began talking to Native American girls and elders, I spoke to many elders as well, before they even agreed to have a conversation with me, I shared this story in my email. I shared this story, and I said, there's shared pain. There's shared ancestral, intergenerational pain, genocide, Holocaust. We are the same. And they were like, yeah, oh, this is good. This is really good. So I felt so validated, and to write that story. And there's a conversation in the book. I don't talk about the Holocaust, but I talk about, genocide. And, Sarah from the East, Falcon, has a conversation with Maya from the North, and there's a bridge of understanding.
Mm.
And I mean, what could be better than that, right? To talk about that with girls, and they realize, what, we are so different, and yet we're really not. We feel the same things. We have the same heart. We have the same hopes and dreams for ourselves and the world. So that was a big part of it for me. So the the multicultural thing, and I was really thrilled. I won an award, the International Impact Award for Multicultural Fiction. So that felt like a great validation.
So awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
And I also won an award for environment and a finalist for fantasy fiction. So, what a joy and a surprise. I mean, these are hard. These interviews are hard sometimes because I'm not great on social media. I should be better on social media than I am, but I'm not, because I don't, it's just this, I'm a quiet person.
Well, I think a lot of writers are, and again, I know that was something else we were talking about before the official interview too, is just, that pressure on authors and writers to suddenly become, social media experts and build huge followings. And, oh, if you want to, reach a wider audience and sell your book, you've got to have, and it's such a difficult thing, because I think that so many writers do tend to be introverts. Like, that's where we can go and create from. And
you're in the hole.
You don't want to write. And it doesn't mean that we don't ever want to talk to people or anything, but it's different, I think, when you feel like you're doing self-promotion. And
it's the humble brag. You have to deal with the humble brag.
Well, or making connections and being available to readers and people who are interested in your book, and potential readers and things like that, where you want to create genuine connections, but you don't necessarily want to live your life on social media. I certainly understand that too.
I am learning. I am part of an amazing group, Binders, building platforms, with Ashley Renard, who you interviewed,
Yes.
and Allison Williams, and they are rock stars, and they're really wonderful, and they are generous and giving of their time. It's still really daunting to me. One of the things that I've done is probably, so I've donated a lot of books. I have found underwriters. So we've donated to the Girl Scouts of America, lots of books, and I'm working with them on a program. Little Free Library has a read and color program. So books were dispersed, which I was thrilled about. And now they have one for Native Americans. So that's a way to just get the book out there and let it sort of find its own wings. Right?
Well, I know that Ashley, had talked about on the Writer's Bridge how she did that a lot with her book, utilizing the little libraries and finding out that people were utilizing those during the pandemic. And I think that's really interesting research, that she did to reach out to her audience directly and say, hey, are you guys using this? What's going on? And then finding that as a way to make inroads with her book too. So I think that's fabulous that your book is then, you're helping your book get into the right hands and have some organic growth with girls and various communities that are a perfect audience for it.
Yeah, it's still really hard. I have pages and pages of things to do, a big to-do list. And, I just actually posted something on Facebook on my page about needing to lay it down. Lay down the stress, lay down, the whole intensity of promoting it, and just enjoy the fact that I wrote a book, right? I wrote a book and it was published and it's getting really great reviews and I think it's beautiful, and just sit with that for a little bit. We're all in this crazy world of push, and I am pushing. My publisher's very happy that I'm pushing. I'm pushing a lot. And I'm reaching for the stars. I really am. In terms of who I'm getting the book to. But I think I miss writing every day. I have another book in me, and I miss the sitting down at the page every single day. You're just too exhausted after doing all the promotion. So.
Well, and it seems like there are different stages to writing and creating and birthing a book and then promoting it and then having that sort of quiet, reflective time afterward when, people are reading, people are reviewing, and you might be getting comments and, you might be getting awards, fortunately, like you have. And, but it's almost like allowing space for those different stages and understanding that it's okay, to be in whatever stage that you're in. And so if you're in the stage where you're ready to step back, it's okay to step back and then to
start. Not for long, because we have Earth Day coming up. So we have a lot of work to do. It's a great opportunity, and I think a lot of writers, it's interesting, for promotion, there are days and times of year that are really good depending on the content of your book. So Earth Day is a great day for mine, right? International Day of the Girl in October is another great opportunity. So try to, come up with programming that fits that, and engages people maybe organically through their own interests already. So there are a lot of bees in my book, right? Sophia Rose, the mentor of these girls, is a beekeeper, and the bee wisdom is very prevalent in this book, and the bee does some magic, but I don't know. So there's a whole beekeeping community. So you talk to them, and you talk to the moms in science, Moms for Science, and you talk to the people who don't want plastics in the oceans and Lonely Planet and all of that. So it's really getting the organizations. What I'm doing is trying to get the organizations behind my book. And also giving them, donations based on the sales. I would like to help them do their work.
That's really great. And how wonderful that you're making all of those vital connections with those groups and, thinking so critically about that, to think like, again, who would like this book, who would resonate with this book, who would find things in this book, to connect with. And I think that's really great advice for, other authors out there too, to, think about their own works with that kind of eye and, who cares about this? Who's
going to care? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Who's like Ashley's book is, great for, couples.
Right.
It's a couples book, right?
Sure.
And a woman's book. So there are so many, I just
Ashley Renard's Swing is what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Ashley.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to say that really quick, just in case people are listening and going, "Who's Ashley? Who are you talking about?"
Sorry.
And Ashley Renard and Allison K. Williams have a great free webinar every other Tuesday called the Writer's Bridge, in which they give tips like these to authors of, again, trying to help them market and promote and build bridges, not platforms necessarily.
Right. And that's interesting, building bridges, and that's hopefully what this book is doing too. Building bridges and having a lot of fun reading it, because I think it's a fun read, and at least that's what they tell me.
Yeah. Well, can we hear a little bit of a sample of the book?
Sure. What a great segue. Okay, so I'm going to read. It's the opening of the book. It's pretty much the prologue. And let's see. It's called Lascaux. Lascaux. And that is the name of a cave in France. Okay. We join the story in the moment that the world's first painting of a horse meets its destiny, which is to say that we join an ancient story, a story that travels like a talisman through time into the hands of a woman named Sophia Rose. That painting on the walls of a cave in France shows a wild mane, a strong neck, a lean body outlined in black, legs in motion, hooves off the ground. We view it from a distance of 17,000 years in the moment that a crack in the stone lets a sliver of light seep in. This light illuminates the crystalline deposits on the walls, layers that have built up for millennia. This light, sizzling through the crack, lands on the horse's hoof with a power so intense, sparks ignite like firecrackers, activating a crystal buried underneath. What happens next might stun even those who believe in magic. The crystal, green as an emerald, dislodges from the rock, ricochets across the cave, and falls to the floor. It twists itself, stretches like hot blown glass into the shape of a U, a horseshoe that will change the world. It twists itself, stretching like hot blown glass, again into the shape of a U. We are not told how it makes its journey around the circle of the earth, touching all the hemispheres from east to south, west to north, gathering the wisdom of nature, the codes that live in rivers and rock, trees and wind, and the fire of the sun. No human force carries this crystal until it makes its way into the hands of chosen guardians, women who understand the plant and animal kingdoms, secrets and symbols from gods and goddesses, myths and lore that evolve over time. We meet up with it again in North America in the 21st century. This talisman, called the crystal horseshoe, named by Gaia, goddess of the earth, is under the protection of Sophia Rose.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. That
You're
was
welcome.
fantastic. Any chance you have an audiobook coming out with you reading
I
that?
actually have an audiobook and I didn't read it.
Oh no! Because you have such a great voice and you're such a great reader, and I love hearing you read. I'm thinking, oh man, I want to hear the whole thing like
I
that.
don't think I have such a New York accent.
No, oh
You
gosh, I think
know?
your voice is very soothing and very inviting, and I think especially given the story and the again the lyrical writing that you have, it just pulls me right in. I love it. I would have loved to have listened to your voice. Can you create another version? No.
Well, actually, I mean,
The publisher would probably be like, no, we're not doing that.
no, not doing that now. maybe if I do have friends who have studios, so maybe I'll do something. But no, and you know, I would make it. I'm too mystic. You know, there you have to have somebody that can really move it along. You know, and I don't know if that's me.
I like your version. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No,
You're
that's
welcome. I don't know. No,
But
it's
anyway, and so
beautiful.
next we have Sophia standing on Mount Shasta, and a violent storm comes. She's holding the crystal horseshoe to the moon. She does this every month, and a storm comes, and the storm is actually the villain in the story. Comes in the form of a cloud, which is Santamon, which is basically Monsanto and all those other awful chemical greedy corporations, and represents that. And it actually, she breaks the crystal. She's holding on to it for dear life. It's never happened before. She's been the holder of the crystal for a long time, and the crystal breaks into 6 pieces, and one of them falls, and it's stolen by a giant black raven. And the girls, and she can't find it, so she knows, okay, I need a new generation. It's time for me to step back and not do it alone. That's a really big part of this book, to not do it alone. I can't do this alone. I need a sisterhood, a circle. And that's why the girls come together from the north, south, east, and west. And they come together, and together are able to go on this quest to find that missing piece, which will heal the planet. So
That is so lovely. And the sisterhood message and the not doing it alone. Again, I think that's so valuable for our current times and everything that we've dealt with over the last couple of years, and those kind of reminders that we can't do it alone, that we do need each other more than we realize, more than we realized in the past.
And we're all related and we're all connected. And that's a big message too. You know, we may look different, we may come from different places, but we are all part of the same thread. Right. We're all part of the same thread. So it's been a wonderful journey. And, you know, it is Tikkun Alone, which is the Hebrew word for repairing the world. And so the girl from the East teaches them about repairing the world. And so we need to do this for real, right?
Absolutely.
And the truth is, you know, for me anyway, humanity, Mother Earth can heal herself. She knows what to do. She's been around for billions of years. Humanity has to heal itself. Get rid of greed, all of those things that really, I mean, it's the film Don't Look Up. I mean, with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I mean, I don't know if you have seen it, but it's
on my watch list, and I want to catch it really soon. But I've been hearing comments about it.
Unbelievable! I mean, it's totally satire, but what a commentary on the status of our Earth, you know. But this book is hopeful. Right? This book is really, really hopeful, and it's about love, it's basically a love story, and it's about hope and unity, and it is not dystopian. And that's what I really love about it, because we have to have hope.
I think that comes through even in your title. I feel like you're even just reading the title of your book,
Mhm.
The Dreamcatcher Codes, it just, to me, it implies that positivity that you like, again, I never would have thought, oh, this is a dystopian novel, or this is, you know, worrisome about the environment, that it is more of, again, like you said, the healing and the humanity and
Yeah.
the positive bent. So how did you decide on that, I guess, as the title? Did that come sort of roaring forth like your new
Roaring for, some people have like lists. I had some other titles, and once I knew that the dream catchers were going to play a very big role in the story, and they do, very big role in the story, I named it that. And if you can't really see, but even the web of the dream catcher is, oh, it's over there. The web of the dream catcher is the flower of life.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Right?
seeing that now in the middle. Okay.
Yeah.
I see that.
So it's all about life. This book is really about life and preserving life. So, and I wasn't so sure about the cover in the beginning, but the dream catchers. So what happens is, well, I'm not going to tell you what happens.
Yeah, we don't want to give away too much, but I think even just your initial reading, it really draws you into the story and into what's going to happen. And so I guess too, just to kind of back up for a second too, when you said about researching, the book and going to all of these places, I'm curious to know, like, how long did all of that take you with the traveling and the research, and then how long did it take you as far as the writing?
I went to every compass point, which is where the scenes take place, where they're looking for the crystal, except for Denali, right?
Yeah.
I've been to, I haven't been to Alaska, but I have been to Vancouver, and so that I could see the glaciers before. So I had that in my head. Really, it was mostly, I went to Boneyard Beach, which is a beautiful scene that fire and water go to together. And I would say I started writing it in Santa Fe, and I traveled for about 3 weeks in Santa Fe. I went up to Taos, and I spoke to some elders, and I went to there's some places that are in the book that are places that I would like to say I spent a lot of time with, right? Place is a character in this book. It's really important. So I had to know my characters. I had to write their Bible, right? And it was different in every place. So I was really fortunate. I got a 3-week residency, summer residency at the summer colony, Sedona Summer Colony. That was fantastic.
Wow.
Because I spent half the day writing and the other half of the day exploring.
Oh, how cool.
It was so great. It was so wonderful. And even there's a scene in the book about the Grand Canyon, how a V of birds fly over the Grand, and there are 9 and 9, 18, which is the Hebrew word. It's chai, which is the word for life in Hebrew. And she says, oh, wow, that's 18. It's going. And that happened to me. Right? That happened to me. And some of the cloud formations that were over the Grand Canyon made the shadows were of giant birds. So I use that, right? I use the raven, the black raven and the white raven. There was a scene, I went to this is really interesting. I went to Ghost Ranch,
Mm.
which is in New Mexico, and it's where Georgia O'Keeffe painted. Her home is on the grounds there, and I went to the desk and I said to the guy, I said, I'd like to take a hike today. And he said, okay. And he took out his piece of paper, and in pink magic marker, he goes, you can go here. And I said, he goes, it's really easy. And I said, no. I said, you see that? Pointing up. He goes, yeah. I said, I want to go there. I said, will I get cell service? And he said, yeah. I said, is it? He said, well, there's like nobody there right now. I said, good, I'm going. And I went. And that was a big stretch for me, huge stretch for me. So I was nervous, but I knew that that's where I had to go. I was going to get some kind of lesson from nature there. I got a lot of messages from nature, a lot of, if you listen, boy, it's right there. It's all right there. It's all right there for us, for all of us. So I get to the trailhead. I took 4 Advil, by the way, before I went. And I get to the trailhead, and there's an ant. There's a little ant. And this little tiny ant is carrying, 100 times its weight on its back, right? And it's at the trailhead, and it's just going up, going up, going up. And I said, thank you. Thank you. I can do this. You're telling me that I can do this too. It's beautiful. And I went up that mountain, and it was really hard. And there were, faces in the rock. They all made it into the book. All made it into the book. The ant made it into the book. The faces in the rock made it into the book. The fact that I had run out of water, I got up to the top and I sat, and a hawk came and literally sat with me, did not move. And then I had realized, I'm out of water and I'm really thirsty and I have to go back. And I don't know why I did this, Jane, but I think this whole book was spirit for me. I really do. I literally sucked on my arm. I went like this, and I felt the salt. Dry sweat, I felt it, and it sustained me. Or at least I thought it did. I don't know, physiologically it really did, but it sustained me. And I thought to myself, oh, those who walked before, all of those indigenous people who came before, must have done the same thing. It was just intuitive for survival. Wow. So many things happened like that I put into the book, and messages, and lots of giant animals come, animal medicine and plant medicine, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well, that's so rich, and that's so great that you would be open about all of that symbolism and all of those signs, that you experienced, to weave those into the book. And it sounds like this was a spiritual journey for you, both the literal journey and the writing of the book.
All of it, all of it. I really grew a lot. Because I knew, I've studied a lot of things. I've taken a lot of classes in, crystals and, things like that. I'm really not that woo-woo. I'm really pretty down to earth. I'm pretty,
I have a friend who says embrace the woo, and there's don't poo-poo the woo-woo. There's different phrases.
I know, really good. I'm I know.
So it's okay. You can embody and explore that.
I know. But there was a lot of that in this book. And I have been studying for a long time, I've taken so many workshops and, in astrology, and I did take a workshop in plant medicine and in crystal grids, and because I wanted to know, and so in a way, like all of the things that I've studied over the years made it into this book without me trying, without me really understanding or knowing it. It just sort of happened that way. So it wasn't planned. I did not have an outline for this book because I thought that would it would inhibit my creativity. Right.
I've never found outlines to be helpful. Maybe it's just that holdover from when I was in school and I would write the outline after I wrote the paper.
Right. That's sort of.
I'm glad to know that outlines don't speak to other people. Or the whole, if you have an A, you have to have a B. If you have a 1, you have to have a 2. And I'm like, there is no 2, or there is no, like, this is my main point. Or I don't have it. Everything's not parallel. I'm sorry.
It's not all that linear, it wasn't all that linear. I didn't have an outline, but what really helped me in this book? Each girl has a journal so that they can sort of speak in their own voice and write about the dreams that they have from the dream catchers, which give them clues, right? So I just journaled a lot. And I put things together and I just would sit and write. And I knew I did have a book coach. His name is Ben Tanzer. He was wonderful. And he said, just take the hero's journey, take it's a circle and it's got all the parts, and just populate the parts that you've written. Because I would write something and then I'd come back the next day and I'd write something totally different, and then I'd spend a day doing journaling, the girls' journaling. And I had to weave it together. That was the hardest part, was weaving it together.
Well, it sounds like you really let that all unfold as an organic process. And I love that the things that you had studied in the past just sort of bubbled up to the surface and became part of the book without necessarily orchestrating that. Because I think sometimes too, when things are a little too, it's almost like over strategizing or something, that if you strategize that from the beginning, I'm going to include this and this and this and this, it would probably be sort of too intellectual and it wouldn't read right. But I think when you allow those sort of natural topics or questions or things that you've learned to then just bleed into the writing, come to the surface and be shared. It sounds really like that's what you were doing then. And excellent result.
It was things were just happening. They just happened. So I think I was really lucky. I think I was lucky.
So how long would you say that it took you then, kind of this whole process, like start to finish?
From idea, it was just an idea, and I started, my walls were covered with images, and my son said, "Oh, Mom, what are you writing, a graphic novel? Is that going to be a video game?" Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, the video game concept is interesting.
It would actually be great. And there are not a lot of games for girls. So that's something I think I might want to pursue.
Yeah.
7 years from start to finish. I mean, I was doing other things. I was freelancing.
Right.
I was doing advertising. I was, filming cowgirls, going back and forth and trying to, raise money for that. And I was teaching and all of those things. But about 7 years from then to now.
Well, good for you for staying with it through all of the other things that you were doing and to kind of keep pursuing that vision. I know that can be a real challenge for writers when you're trying to do the things to make money and support your family, but then you're also trying to, do your art and,
really
do
hard.
all the things. And so, that's certainly something that I think most writers are up against. So do
I
you have
think a
any?
lot of writers are up against that, and then at one point I just said 500 words a day.
Mm,
That's it. 500 words a day. I also had this great sort of writing exercise that I did before I started writing the book called Say It in Six, where
mm,
you tell a story in 6 sentences. Now, you'd be surprised how long a sentence could be.
mm.
As long as you break it up with something short and, punchy so that it has a great rhythm, but you can have a lot to say. You can say a lot in 6 sentences. So I played around with that a little. I would get an idea, and just write something and put it away, put it in a folder. So it's an interesting process. And my husband said, when am I going to get you back? Recently. When are we going to have you back? And I don't know how, I mean, you've got so many kids. I don't know how like I look at, there are people that I know who have children and jobs and are writing books. And I'm beyond floored by that. How do they do that? But you do it. You find a way. You write between the creases. You write in the creases. So
That's my goal. To try to make that happen, alongside all of the other things that matter. But I think just giving yourself the space to say, this matters too, and I wanna work on this. I wanna finish this. And
my kids were pretty much out of the house.
mm.
So I did have the luxury of time.
So would you like to talk a little bit about some of the challenges of releasing a book during during the pandemic? And I know that's kind of a whole separate issue, but if you have suggestions or just insights to share from your experience, it might be helpful for other authors.
Well, my book was originally scheduled to launch on Earth Day in last April. And it didn't happen because of, issues with, supply chain and printing and COVID and all of that. And then it was delayed. I said, okay, so we can't do it then. How about World Oceans Day, which is in June? Couldn't get it together. They couldn't do it.
Mm.
And then finally, let's do it in July. And then I had all of these pre-orders on Amazon and they couldn't fill them because they couldn't print the book.
Mm.
So I don't know how many. So finally the book came out on August 18th, August 17th. And which is a kind of really, really funky time for a book, I think. I think that if I was waiting that long, I probably should have waited until October, because that's it was kind of too late for a summer read for kids. This is a great camp read. So that's another avenue I'm taking, like, summer camps. But it really was, it really held things up. And you're in this like place of like, it's like you're pregnant and you're pushing. And then, the midwife says, no, you got to stop. I'm like, I can't stop. I mean, like, how do you stop?
Right. Yeah, there's no stopping at that point.
It's like, no stopping, you've already had, Bookstagram lined up and Storygram and this and that. I mean, and everything's like, stop, right? It was really stressful. It was very, very stressful, but it came out when it came out, and everything is perfect because everything is right? Everything is right. So I, what I didn't know, because I was so new to this, and, here's what I recommend. Anybody out there writing a book, learn about how to market it. as you're writing it. Or the minute it's, the minute you send it to the editor, start building your platform, or at least just know how you're going to do it. Are you going to, you have decisions to make. Do you want to have a newsletter? I don't have a newsletter. I just don't, right? Because it's, for me, it's, I can't market, I'm not going to market a newsletter to kids, right? But moms are really an audience. It's just, it's a little fractured for me. It was a little fractured. So, but here's the thing, a book has a life, it's evergreen. And even though there are a lot of books that come out, I think, what is it, like 2,300 a day?
Oh gosh.
Something like that. I heard like some like crazy thing. It finds its way. It finds its way. And most people are not bestsellers.
Right.
That's, it's rare when that happens. And, people are going with small publishers. Some people are going with, most people, all the people that I know, not all of them, just about all of them are going with indie presses. I would say use a publicist. Definitely invest in a publicist. They don't have to be that expensive. Wiley Sachek is my publicist, and he's a dream. He's wonderful. Wiley Sachek, he's in Brooklyn. And I think there are certain things worth investing in. And get all of your blurbs. Don't take no for an answer. Just keep at it. And I finally got my blurbs, but I realized I spent more time on that. I spent too much time on my blurbs, on getting blurbs, and not enough time building Instagram or learning it, or learning some of the tools that I'm only learning now. So, which is why the marketing, I think, has been so overwhelming. So those were the mistakes that I made, so if anybody out there can learn from them, do. But you know what? Here, have fun. Just be in the joy of the fact that, you wrote a book, and there's so many ways to get published. So many ways. And, like a good cowgirl, don't give up. Don't give up.
Absolutely. Well, and I love that message of a book is evergreen. And so too, it's really never too late to market and promote. You can market and promote. You'll be marketing and promoting in some way, probably for, the rest of the life of the book.
The rest of the life of the book. Yeah. And it'll come in different ways. Like, oh, summer camps. What a great idea. Let me go after that. JCCs. And, that whole thing, because I am Jewish, so it fits into a Jewish book, and it talks about repairing the world. And one of my characters is Jewish, and they talk about the Holocaust. So, that's another avenue. I thought that the West was going to be an avenue, and I was wrong. I was wrong. Just because it takes place in the West and these girls love horses doesn't mean that the cowboy community or the Western community is going to embrace a book that talks about fracking and oil pipelines, gas pipelines. And that's an environmental book, or that, doesn't, I didn't do rodeo for this book, right? A wise friend who is a cowgirl said, oh no, it shouldn't be. They don't meet at a rodeo. It's not environmentally friendly. So instead they meet at a place where they're saving wild mustangs. So the West is not the place for the book. So girl power, the environment, which are two of the things I'm most passionate about, and building bridges. So that's my triad.
Well, it sounds like a great plan, and it's a wonderful book,
Thank
the
you so much.
Dreamcatcher Codes. Go get it. It is excellent, and you will absolutely be drawn in by this story. And Barbara, I just thank you so much for being here today and giving all this intriguing background. The background is as interesting as the book. Just to think that you did all that traveling and that there's all of this sort of rich depth of, mysticism and earth wisdom and everything that's woven into this. So thank you so much just for sharing all of that with us.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be able to talk about it and share. I don't know who's out there, but
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy the book. It was a great ride for me.
Thank you again so much for being here. And thanks everyone for hanging in there with us through some technical issues. And Author Talks will be back next week with author Brian Petcash talking about his book of short stories called Mistakes by the Lake. So we'll see you next week. And again, thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Okay.